Okay, so to get started with this week's community call, we're going to be looking at the metrics for ResearchHub. And so the first one that's probably the most relevant is Google Analytics. So again, just to say it for the recording, if anybody has any thoughts or questions, feel free to jump in at any point. I can't see anyone, so yeah, either have Anton call on you or just jump in. It's no big deal. So here's our weekly active user chart. This is for the last 7 days, and this is for the previous time period. So we had 1,200 people visit ResearchHub for the last 7 days, which is down 15.5% from the previous 7 days. One important thing about Google Analytics is it doesn't track everyone. I think a whole lot of tech savvy people have analytics blockers on. So I think Google Analytics gets 60 to 70% of people. So all these numbers are a little bit depressed and don't include the most technologically savvy people. Some of the things that Google Analytics has in it are traffic channels. So this is how did we end up getting new users? One of the big parts of this is organic search. So when people search ResearchHub or they search the title of a paper, do they actually come to ResearchHub from that? Or what proportion of our total new users come from those channels? This also has direct. So that's if you click on researchhub.com link or just go directly to ResearchHub in your browser. And then there's social stuff like Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, Facebook, that kind of thing. And then I'm not sure what referrals are. It might be a referral link we have. But yeah, so this is what shows how we acquire users. You can look at the specific social stuff and even the page that people came from too in more detail. Here's our overall picture of active users. Here's a 30-day moving average up top, a 7-day moving average, and then the daily actual users of ResearchHub. Here's retention. So this is how many users who showed up today show up a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, and so on. This is locations, but it isn't very accurate because lots of people use VPNs, that kind of thing. And time of day of when people actually show up to ResearchHub. Does anybody have any thoughts so far on Google Analytics? Anything you'd like to explore more? For context, we could back this out to 28 days.
Patrick, are you going to go through some of the other, is this just an overview of Google Analytics? Are you going to go into any more, or is this kind of?
So we also have Amplitude here, which is Google Analytics is good for weekly active users. So these are people who are showing up to the website. Amplitude is good for weekly active contributors. So these are all actions that are taken on the website. And then we have Hotjar too, which is a more granular view of a heat map on the website where people clicking, and then we can even see recordings. So if you landed on the live feed page, what did you do after that? Or if you landed on a specific paper from Reddit, how many people actually clicked into the comment section or decided to continue to browse other portions of ResearchHub. So I figured we'd start with Google Analytics first, talk through it all, and then do Amplitude, talk through it all, and then finish up with Hotjar. But we can go back and forth to whatever you find most relevant.
Yeah, I know for me, when I use Google Analytics, I look at also the behavior, but you guys, yeah, actually typically what are the pages people are going to, how are they flowing through the yeah, and I guess here you can kind of see the majority of people are staying on the main page, and then the hubs, of course, it makes sense, is the next one, and then it kind of flows down from there. And then acquisition, I always look at the kind of going into breaking down. Yeah, we know a lot of the organic search is coming from generally organic acquisitions, but looking at the interesting one are social and referrals, because that's you're oh, okay, are people tweeting about it? So is it coming from Twitter? And just understanding where people are coming from is something I do here as well. but that's kind of where I start.
Yeah, so feel free. You think we should dive into the social to see where people are like referring to us?
Yeah, it's like it's just yeah, and it's I don't know what the plan. It's just interesting to know like okay, here we can kind of see Twitter, Facebook are probably the biggest drivers. I'm surprised it's Facebook's on there. Do we have like is it like do you have a Facebook page or do you have anything on Facebook, Patrick?
Yeah, so we do. It's not really well built
Uh,
out. All of the Facebook traffic has come from one post that was shared at the very beginning of COVID by someone who had a specific disorder and was like, "Oh, this kind of reminds me of like the symptoms of COVID." So he wrote up kind of like a preprint of sorts. It's not a scientist. Published it to ResearchHub, and then he's also a digital marketer. So he shares it around these patient groups on Facebook. So we get a
oh
decent amount of
wow.
Facebook traffic just from this one paper that was shared. Who has a digital marketer who wrote it and like is interested about like getting his opinion out there more.
That's wild. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think it's like maybe our most visited page on all Research Hub. That's actually a paper page.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, cool. Yeah.
So
But yeah, no, it's good. It's interesting. Yeah, it shows that like they got a lot of users. Um, yeah.
Is it possible to filter out editors, for example?
So not from Google Analytics. I know our team is working on Amplitude statistics. So here's our North Star, which is weekly active contributors. Basically, everybody who's come to Research Hub and taken an action on the website. We plan to have this basically weekly active contributors minus editors on a hub to hub basis. So it might be in the leaderboard already on Research Hub, but if it's not, we plan on putting it into a dashboard for everybody to be able to see.
so Patrick, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned the one article that was super successful from Facebook that was posted by a digital marketer. I mean, the first thought that came to my mind was, like what about that exactly made it that successful? Because at the end of the day, I mean, those are potentially strategies that the editors can use as well to drive traffic to the platform. So, for example, I mean, in the hubs, like uploading your research article and then putting in, like the terms you put, right, to describe what the article is about, rather than just the, scientific jargon that is usually associated with the abstract. But, like strategies like that, that could actually help in SEO optimization and drive folks from these different platforms. Posting on Twitter feeds and social media pages, and even like on blogs as well, like your personal blogs. So I was just wondering if that was like a strategy that we have tried to explore, or if there were like any plans towards doing that, and just making folks like aware of like the basics of SEO optimization and stuff.
Yeah, totally. It's a great point. So I'm pretty sure this is the paper that we get all the referrals from Facebook on. And a lot of the commentary, this is like from before we changed our comments around, so they no longer show up. But a lot of it was like, these are actually patients who have MCAS and thought that the symptoms were similar to COVID. So yeah, all this traffic is from Ryan essentially posting it to different patient groups on Facebook. Another strategy, which has been like pretty successful that I've used in the past, is posting papers to Our Science, which is like this really large subreddit on Reddit. There's like pretty predictable papers that do well in Our Science. For instance, like if you like post a paper about like cannabis or ketamine, like it normally does pretty well. So I posted papers where it'll get to the top of Our Science, and then we'll have like 50,000 inbound clicks from that. So I was chatting with Ricardo, and one thing we want to do either next week during the community call, or we can actually do like a specific workshop on this. Like I can kind of show people the process that I go through when I want to share a post to Reddit, and like with the intention of driving a lot of inbound traffic, and show others how they could do that for their own hub. Reddit's amazing, and Facebook is decent too, because there's a lot of very specific groups and subreddits. So like, for instance, one of my favorite on Reddit is R Immunopsychiatry, and they talk about how like problems with the immune system can end up manifesting in psychiatric conditions. And so I've found papers that I think are relevant for that subreddit, and I'll like start a conversation on it and then post to that subreddit. So I would bet that almost every hub has like a parallel Facebook group or subreddit where if you share a paper that you think would resonate with other online communities and start like a little bit of a conversation, it's very easy to share it and then try and like draw people in from other places that are also talking about these sort of papers, but maybe don't have the same tools that ResearchHub has to host the discussion. So yeah, either next week for the community call or like a specific like session, if people are more interested in that, we can walk through like a bunch of these strategies in order to take advantage of like sharing stuff to social media to drive traffic.
I think Petri, those are good ideas. I think one of the hardest parts is, because let's say you copy the URL of that paper there and you paste it in a Twitter tweet or a Facebook post. Like generally, like it would have a header image, so like it auto generates an image, so maybe like some of the text, but like because it doesn't do that automatically, like we as like editors would have to like retype it, maybe add a picture. Whereas like if you kind of maybe ask Kobe how hard it is to implement something like just header image and like a description that could take the first couple lines of the abstract, then it's just very easy to share. Making like sharing easier for us would like help a lot with just getting the word out, right?
Yeah, totally. And so we actually had like social media cards where initially we were trying to pull like at least one figure from the paper and have it like show up highlighted here. And it would be in the social media card when posted to like, Twitter, Reddit, that kind of thing. I think it's not very hard for us to implement something like that. So if you all wanted us to, we could definitely do something. I don't know if any engineers, sorry, I can't see. If we have anybody from our team here who could maybe comment on that as well. Do we? Yeah, I don't think we have any of our engineers here, but I will definitely mention that. And I think it would only take like a day or so in order to do something like that.
If we want to scale internationally, I know that there are different versions of Facebook around the world. For example, in China, there's a different version. In Ukraine, in Russia. I mean, not different versions, but the users are using different social media platforms. So if we could post on that platforms, of course, with the translation button available, maybe this will increase the users, possibly.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, I'm thinking eventually we should have like as part of our ELN, just make this very, very easy for people, where we can even give suggestions of the different type of sites that they could share to, like the exact copy that would do well. But yeah, take out a lot of the thought process from it, make it very easy to follow. And yeah, we should definitely like think of all of the social media that we could post to, not just like English centric ones.
Yeah, and for example, some versions of Facebook and some features are not available all around the world. So this could disrupt the network effects and stuff like that. I mean, it happened to me with my posts at some point.
It's a great suggestion. We should definitely do something like that.
Hey, do we know how we are getting the organic search data? Like, are people just searching for ResearchHub, or are we ranking for something else as well?
So we can take a look. I think the grand majority are ResearchHub, but then we also have done a little bit of work to do SEO for specific papers. I I think there's also like some pixels that we could do to like help basically like make this information more detailed. So if we wanted to see like specifically what were people clicking on in Google searches, we could do that. I think the majority of it is people searching for ResearchHub, and then a little bit from like the titles of specific papers.
Do we know what, is there anyone in right now in this call who knows what we're doing in terms of SEO? And especially seeing that we have a lot of papers already in our database, so maybe that should help. Like, can you
Yes.
hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we don't have any of the engineers on this call. We did an SEO audit maybe like a year and a half ago, where we like worked with an SEO consultant in order to like try and have more content actually be crawlable by Google Spider, who like basically indexes all the websites. But yeah, I think I still have the recommendations that they made, so be happy to publish those. And then if you have a specific question, I can like ask our engineers to say exactly what we're doing. There is more work that we could put into SEO, but yeah, SEO seems like a good way to scale community, but not necessarily like to bring new people in. I'm not sure how many people like come to a page on ResearchHub just totally organically and then like want to comment on it. So yeah, that's kind of the way we think about it, is that it's a good like acquisition channel, but it's not going to necessarily increase our weekly active contributors. It would increase the weekly active users, but the amount that we'd convert into contributors, we have to figure out that conversion first before it makes like a ton of sense to spend time and effort optimizing SEO.
Right. Yeah, makes sense.
Does anybody have specific questions from the Google Analytics side, or should we move on to Amplitude?
Yeah, I think you can move on to Amplitude, Patrick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so with Amplitude, these are like specific events that we've recorded and plugged into this dashboard here. We can do this for like pretty much any event that you can think of. So if there are any other categories here that you'd like to see, let me know and we can ask our engineers to kind of build it. So our North Star is weekly active contributors. This is the last, I believe, 3 months worth, but we can even like back this up really far just to show the whole story. So yeah, if we go to maybe, let's do since 2020. Oh, too many. Let's do February 2020 or 2021. So this is weekly active contributors. There's always like events essentially that'll happen. I believe this is like when we interviewed the founder of Sci-Hub. We did something else beforehand that like got us a little bit of media attention. But yeah, this is kind of like the big picture of just about a year worth of weekly active contributors. Here's the editor program. So we can see like a little like kind of like upward trajectory here. Going back to look at some of these other metrics, here's discussions, so comments, user signups, total number of upvotes, papers uploaded, like individual papers. We used to automatically import papers a while ago, so we were keeping track of that, but we disabled that feature maybe 6 months ago. Total number of boosts, so this is a number of times people supported each other using RSC. And this, I believe, is the total number of RSC used when supported. And so those are the categories we have so far. I can dig into any one of these kind of like on a larger time scale or different like slice rather than weekly. We could look daily or monthly. Is there anything here people are interested in seeing more?
I guess Patrick. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say, as another metric that we could consider in the future, if we want to do like a targeted campaign, for example, could be that of like paper claims. So like if we're targeting our campaign into like, hey, come on ResearchHub, claim your paper. That's something that not now, I mean, but we were thinking about that, like for like using emails and like basically telling people to come on ResearchHub for claiming their paper. That's something that maybe we would like to add in the future.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great point. So super admins on the site now can see this. So this is like our paper claiming portal. We still have a bug here, so we haven't been able to like accept all of these yet. But once it's like figured out, we can actually see like the total backlog of paper claim requests from like a super admins user. But yeah, it would be very easy for us to throw this into Amplitude too. And maybe I wonder if there's a way to easily give community members access to this so you all can check it, kind of at your own convenience. Now that I have to have us broadcast it. I'll write that down too and make sure we can figure that out.
Malik?
Yeah, hi. Quick question on just about that, claiming the paper. And Ricardo had mentioned that to me yesterday or day before. Is like, so like right now, like, are you guys like, there is that email template. Like, would you guys like send it to like, let's say a paper has like 6 authors, like to everybody, or like the key last author, or like any suggestions on that?
So right now, and any of the authors can claim. So as long as your name's on the paper, you're able to claim it.
Okay. Okay. And you guys are just like trying to find these authors like through online Google search, like their contacts, like if they're at a university or something, and then find their contact?
So we haven't done like a ton of intentional outreach to authors, asking them to claim their papers. It's more from people who show up and see their paper and then see like the claim button and kind of do it on their own accord. I do think there is a future where we should recruit authors just to be available to answer questions about their papers. But yeah, we haven't put too much like intentional thought into strategies behind how to do that most effectively.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So Patrick, like, I'm kind of curious because, like, it's one of those things where you optimize what you measure, etc. But like for retention, speaking with retention, because I'm assuming like that's what you're currently working on, right? Like working on retaining people and having metrics that support however you decide to retain people. Is that kind of like the idea with these KPIs? Is that how you develop them or pick them?
Yeah, so we picked weekly active contributors just because it's easy to measure and a good kind of metric for like how welcoming of a community do we have. So like how many people are like actively participating in the website. This kind of like includes churn within it. So yeah, it's a function of how many new contributors do we have each week, and then how many contributors drop off or like don't continue to contribute. We could put more focus into retention, like keeping people who are on ResearchHub within ResearchHub. Kind of the thought process that we have here is our best retention mechanism is the community. So like here's our weekly active contributors like during the editor program. There's a solid like 20-ish users who are not editors but still come back on a weekly basis. And these are people who are like have been involved in the community for a while. So there's like a kind of like a social bond that has kept people so far. I think is our best retention mechanism. Do you have anything specific that you'd like to see, Joey, when it comes to like kind of like are we retaining people or like specific metrics? I guess.
Yeah, I guess like yeah, it depends on what your definition is. I guess like contributor. When you say like the definition of contributor for this metric, is it a contributor posts a paper or comments
Or upvote.
or upvote? So it's like at least one thing within a week span, right? And then they kind of pop as a one. That's how they pop on a chart, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, it'd be interesting and like to break it down to see like contributions due to paper posting, comments, or upvotes. I don't know if you've done that. Seems like maybe you have. And then just like to see like, is majority of the contributions like paper posting, or is the majority upvotes or comments? And then knowing that, we kind of know if we're going to develop a new feature or do some sort of new campaign, like if we think retention means more people posting or commenting, then we should see an uptick in that metric. That's kind of how I see a lot of this. Sorry, does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I don't think that we have like unique contributors measured for each like category of activity that goes into the weekly active contributor metric. It would be easy for us to do that though, so we could put that together. I know kind of one perspective that we have is, for instance, it's probably very easy to get people to upvote. And so if we were to create features that like incentivize upvoting, it would probably maximize our weekly active contributors. But zoomed out from that, does it actually provide value for scientists? It's hard to say. So we could kind of like game our features to maximize this metric, but we think we sort of have to be a little bit more holistic when we're like thinking of new features. And then like once we kind of like know that we're providing value for sure, we can very much optimize. But does that make sense? Where like practical example of this, we want to build like a peer review feature for papers that are shared through our ELN. It's probably going to be pretty hard to get people to do peer reviews, but the value that would come from that would be significantly higher than if we built a feature where maybe users can like invest in upvote and then like earn RSC for helping to curate content within hubs. Yeah, does that perspective make sense? Where these are like, it's good to see like where the ship is going, but we like want to get across the sea, not necessarily like let where the wind is blowing tell us exactly where to go.
Yeah, a lot of this is trial and error with generative metrics. It's tough. This is like the hardest thing. But I think if we can break it down a little bit, get some granular, even like getting a metric that does uploaded papers over users gives you like how many papers per user, and then you get to kind of see like it's probably like a U shape, right? There's a lot of users who post less than one, and then there's probably like a lot of people post more than 5. You know what I mean? Like, and just like talking to those users who are posting a lot and seeing like, oh, how can we make it easier for you to post more? It seems like you're using this quite often. Again, this is exploratory stuff, but
yeah, totally.
Patrick, I was just wondering, why wouldn't it be useful to incentivize people to upvote to scientists? I don't understand. I don't understand why it wouldn't be.
So in my mind, the curation of papers is not as big of a problem as peer review is, just from like a holistic sense in science. And so if we're able to solve the problem of like figuring out how we can pay peer reviewers for contributing their peer review content rather than have it be like a volunteer basis where people are basically doing work for free for big companies, that to me feels like a bigger unlock where lots of people have this problem, lots of people are trying to work on this issue, than necessarily like a curated registry of papers for specific fields. If that makes sense. I guess another piece here too is like there are other ways that we could do curation outside of upvotes. So like we could, like Altmetric does a good job of helping to like basically like rank papers based on social media activity and stuff like that. And so it does provide value, but it's not as exciting of a problem as like trying to help align the incentives of peer review. Does that make sense?
It does, but it's also like, people get more research coin for, like whatever they posted or for participating. And I understand that long term, that's not the only thing you want to incentivize, but that might actually be something that's pretty valuable in the growth phase. So I feel like that aspect of it shouldn't be ignored either. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about it deeply, but it just seems to me that there is utility in incentivizing people getting more research coin.
Yeah, totally. And I think like one like piece of context here too is like we definitely do not have all the answers, right? Like we're kind of like operating like from a gut feeling at the end of the day. And so like if we do a call like this and everybody's like, oh hey, like incentivizing upvoting is actually a lot more exciting than trying to like address peer reviews, then that can help shift our team's priorities. So yeah, like we don't have all the answers for sure. And so like if people are really excited about trying to like make it easier or give a better reason for people to upvote, then we can definitely like try and shift our attention towards building features that like help to maximize that.
Well, I mean, like, so I'm not sure, right? Because you guys, like, the tricky part is like not incentivizing behavior that can't scale, right? You don't want to just like incentivize people coming on the platform just because they think they can make money, but then you get enough of them on there and the platform isn't designed to deal with that. So you have to balance that with like the fact that if people feel like they can make money from the platform, that they'll want to do that. So I just, yeah, I don't know. I just, it's about balancing those two interests, I would say, and not focusing on either one exclusively.
Yeah, it's a great point. There are like a ton of considerations.
Yeah.
So I can jump to Hotjar too, just to kind of show you how this works as well. So Hotjar, the two coolest things are heat maps and then the recordings. So this is the last 30 days of like just ResearchHub.com. If anybody else has like a specific page that they'd want to see, we can like set up heat maps or recordings for specific pages. This may take a second. While this loads, are there any other questions about the Amplitude metrics or Google Analytics that we can dive into?
Actually, Patrick, like just like overall goal, like what is the? I mean, sorry, I come from like I do a lot of product stuff. So like, what's like the pain point like the Research Hub's trying to solve? Because I think I agree with you that like peer review is a pain in the ass for researchers. So I get why you're working on that. Like, is there other pain points you're like targeting, or is that the big one?
That's what I think there are a bunch, depending on like the category of potential users. I can speak from my own experience where when I was in a PhD program, like I would have liked to earn a little bit of financial value for like sharing my expertise online. So basically like commenting on stuff I was kind of expert in and earning value for doing that. So that's the perspective that I come from. I know in general is like a bigger economic problem in science is that there are a lot of like not ideal incentives, like the bibliometric citation-based reward structure where people become more eligible for grants if you're able to write papers that are highly cited. Causes a lot of downstream issues where people are kind of exiting from that system now by like publishing in open access journals rather than trying to publish behind paywalls and more prestigious versions. Do you have like a large way to say like there are a lot of different pain points that we could potentially address? Do you have one that's most exciting to you, Joey?
Yeah, I guess like I just always curious like where are we generally moving to, and it sounds like the one that sounds more interesting to me is just like it sounds like you're moving towards that in that ResearchHub is another journal where you go publish something. Because if you're trying to build a peer review process, sounds like that'd be the next natural step. It is like just knowing that, I think is like good. I just never don't know if that is the. I mean, there's so many things you can do, and that's the issue with some of these is like you can't go everywhere or you can't do everything. That's just too hard. So I just wanted to know, like, in your perspective, like the one or two things you're like really trying to achieve first.
Yeah, so to me, trying to come up with a different way to encourage research outputs other than citations is the most exciting, where you can, like in theory with ResearchCoin, like we can change the incentives, over time. So trying to like create a reward structure for science that encourages behaviors that are good for everyone, I think is a very exciting problem. Thinking like practically too, I know like just in the last year or two, science has become a much more publicly debated thing. So there are preprints that are used to justify like all kinds of different like policy decisions. And so having like experts provide context to these like scientific documents that are like leveraged by people kind of all across the world to change the world, basically, I think would be pretty cool. And so to me, that's why peer review is exciting. If there's like a very popular preprint, if we could somehow financially like reward experts for coming in to share context on the value of that preprint, I think is a pretty valuable thing. But that's just my own vision and my own perspective. So yeah, we're open to basically like solving the problems, of the scientific community. And like, we know that like, we're only a couple people. So the more we hear from others of potential pain points that we could help address, I think it's always valuable.
We have a few hands, Maulik and then Jack Jones.
Hi guys. I had a couple points to add on to that. I really like the peer review part. In addition to the problems mentioned for the current peer review is, and I'm a peer reviewer, and sometimes the scheduling is so difficult, and the deadlines are so that that on volunteer basis, even if you put your best efforts, sometimes you feel like I could have spent more time with this paper trying to critique it or something. And if there is some value provided for that work, I think it would inherently change, the type of review that we are getting. And then the second thing, and I don't know if this like fits with what ResearchHub eventually would do, is I really feel like the general public, just in biomedical science, the general public, pays a lot of taxes for everything, and all this research is funded by government, at least in biomedical science, to NIH and the grants through that. And then scientists work on it, and then reviewers work for free, and then the current publication system is so like expensive that a common person, if they want to access science, it's very difficult. I always felt that like after all the efforts and a lot of volunteer efforts, and it's still not accessible. And however many articles we can through this can give an access. So that I don't know if that fits in, but I really feel that ResearchHub can play a little role there too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I couldn't agree more. That's kind of what I'm thinking, like for the next like 3 to 6 months. So very much appreciate you saying that.
Thanks.
It's okay. Hey, everybody. My name is actually Mike Stocco. Jack Jones was a pseudonym I signed up on. I just introduced myself real quick. I have a master's in biochemistry, and I've been a blockchain Bitcoin enthusiast since like 2013. I just want to say that, I'm so grateful to have met a group of people. You guys are great. Everybody's really working on this problem. I'm just grateful to be in the company of such good-hearted people. In regards to compensating reviewers, I had a couple thoughts on that. If you had some kind of system where, for instance, if you put it on Ethereum and you had it in such a way that coins were issued or minted, then in time, like I know Ethereum has like 15-second or 10-minute blocks in the past. If you had something similar to that, where papers were uploaded kind of like in a block, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day, but and you can compensate potentially reviewers with a portion of the block reward, as well as the authors. Maybe even you can compensate a portion of the block reward with the people. For instance, if you wanted to go another step of decentralization, perhaps you could go the way of like Filecoin or Arweave and have your papers decentralized, where people are hosting copies of your entire database, and those nodes could be also compensated. And that would also be interesting because it would allow you to paper, it would be hard to keep papers behind. It might be hard to keep papers behind a paywall if uploaders were compensated and the data was distributed across the network in different countries, for instance. It might be hard to keep that completely behind a paywall. But anyway, those are just a few ideas I was thinking about. And thanks.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think it's a great point. And so like one piece of context for ResearchHub itself, we decided to build our app initially with kind of like a centralized database using Amazon, S3 web servers and a traditional like Web 2 architecture for the application itself, with, of course, like the token to help address some of these incentive structures in science. The reason why we chose this is because it's just so much easier to iterate quickly on feature sets. We think that one issue with having like a distributed architecture from the beginning is that you have to really set the rules in an a priori fashion, and it becomes difficult to change once like you've already published like the smart contracts and everything that it would run on. And so our perspective is we want to find a value proposition in like a centralized web application first, in order to like actually see something that scales, and then potentially decentralize the infrastructure after that. I think we also have to make sure that we're doing everything very legally. In theory, we're taking a long-term view to like change the incentives where researchers actually like want to share their papers openly more, rather than kind of like the Sci-Hub perspective where like people are illegally uploading content and then it's hosted in a way where people can actually like get that content. We want to address the problem in what we perceive to be a more sustainable fashion, where it's legal, it's all above board, and you can like in theory try and outcompete some of the like established entities in the space that help to like limit the accessibility of paywalled scientific content. Does that make sense? They're great ideas though, and I think the louder people are, in order to like encourage us to move in that direction, the faster that we'll like move there. So I appreciate you taking the time to stop by and say that for sure.
I would just like to add that I'm dedicated to this project in whatever fashion it goes, and I'd be happy to help anybody in any faction that they might need my help or contribution.
It is pretty awesome to be around a bunch of people who care about science. I'm definitely ridiculously lucky that I get to spend my full day doing this all the time. Yeah, so this is, sorry, I didn't set this up beforehand. I've just got another one going on the homepage now, so I can share this later. But to show how Hotjar works, here's an author page that we did like about a year ago. So this is like, it's showing the hub page, but, oh yeah, because this is like a sign up thing. This is from our onboarding. But this is like the underlying is where people actually click on the author page. So yeah, you can basically just see where people are clicking. Like if people like scroll down to like certain portions of the page.
Patrick, can you 1 second? Nathan, you had something to add before we fully move on to the Hotjar demo?
Oh yeah, that's fine. If in the interest of time, I'll be quite brief. It was just on the topic of peer review. So firstly, I just wanted to say I'm very excited by the idea that we could add peer review to ResearchHub. I was just trying to think of a different way of sort of framing this discussion of where we want to go and what we want to incentivize and what are the sticking points in doing so. And so I think we're all aware, people who have experience of publishing, the issues with scientific journals. And so trying to think about it in a different way, it's interesting to think about what do people actually get from publishing in traditional scientific journals. And obviously there's this vague idea of prestige, but where does it come from? And so firstly, you can think, well, people associate prestigious journals with a rigorous peer review process. But nevertheless, I think that we can all identify that there are some significant weaknesses with the current peer review process. I think one of the great opportunities that ResearchHub has is that right from its inception, it's so cross-disciplinary. So in medicine, for example, I often I'm surprised by the low, weak level of statistical peer review that comes with some of the articles that are published. And actually, ResearchHub has this opportunity because it has so many editors with different disciplines to actually allow for different aspects of peer review and expertise to be drawn in with the same incentive structure. So I think that's one thing that really ResearchHub has going for it if it goes into the peer review space. The second thing that I was thinking about is that actually people sort of associate this metric of impact factor with changes to real world practice. So again, in the medical field, if you are to change a guideline, publishing in a high impact factor journal with a strong research result will be something that would lead to a change in practice. And so impact factor is almost seen as a sort of surrogate for that, because that number of citations implies that it's having an impact on downstream research. So I think another interesting idea would be to think about what is the role of a citation score and how can we really replace it with something that offers that same benefit of giving us a metric for downstream impact of the research that has been published. And I think that those sorts of discussions will really get to, trying to replace the traditional publication system, because what they have, of course, is heritage, but these weaknesses are something that we can try and mitigate.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, I guess the reasons why people publish in like prestigious paywall journals, from my perspective, a lot of it, I think, is one, impact, like you mentioned, like actually influencing the world. But to me, that's more established scientists. Like from my perspective as a grad student, a little bit of it was like, oh man, I just want to get a job one day. And so like publishing in Nature means like you're probably going to get a pretty good postdoc, which really increases your chances of like having a professorship somewhere. So yeah, I guess like from the perspective of an early career researcher, my understanding is that people try and publish in the best like impact factor journals they can in order to help their resume, in order to like make a sustainable career in science. So I think ResearchHub could fit in like really well in a place where maybe we can help to supplement people who want a career in science. If we're able to have like earning research coin be like a way to have almost like a side revenue stream. But yeah, I agree. I think the peer review is very exciting, and there are a lot of really interesting things we'll learn from trying to address it.
Just a very quick response. I totally agree with the point of, from a early career researcher, what you're thinking about is the next grant or the next job that's available to you in the application. And then those publications in major journals are seen as sort of your resume for those jobs. I think the reputation of those major journals, though, tend to come from their impact factor. At least that's a very rudimentary way of looking at it. And so I think it's all about that sort of citation score. Are we replacing the citation score, or are we trying to compete with the citation score at their game and have some an immediate almost equivalent of citation score in ResearchHub, whether that be reputation, whether that be research coin, etc.
If it's okay with everybody else, I'd like to explore this idea a little bit more. So downstream effect. Like, are you saying that we could have like for lack of a better word, like a citation score that included like page views and maybe like products that were eventually created from the knowledge presented within this paper, like thinking of downstream impact as more holistic than just like a derivative of citations?
Yeah, just a very quick response, and then I'll let other people come in. I think one trap that we can't fall into is, of course, the great thing about the traditional journals is that we aren't looking at page views as a metric. We're looking at the impact of the research. So this is different to publishing a blog post about your research that gets interest from the general public, or a TV program or something that covers your research. Instead, the great thing about citation score, although it has its weaknesses, is that it's measuring the direct research impact of the publication.
That's interesting. I think there's a lot more that we could explore here. So we have about 5 minutes left. Does anybody else want to comment on that or look at any of the other metrics in these three tools?
We have two hands from Edwin and Ricardo.
Yeah, I actually wanted to comment on that specifically. I think it's a great idea, Nathan. I mean, something really simple like having people who use the citations rank their perceived importance of the citation could add another dimension to it, right? Where, yeah, because you'd imagine that someone that discovered something that's pretty central, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, their citation could be used a lot when it's actually not central to a lot of research. So there could be like, rating the importance of the citation could serve as just like capping, the like exponential curve, essentially, where you do a certain amount of research and you're just getting the gains past a certain point, even if your results aren't as important now as they were in the past, let's say. But I mean, I don't know. There are different ways, but I think one of the simplest ways to deal with the issue that Nathan brought up would just like have the researchers themselves say how important they think the research is, and that could add another dimension to it that's worth considering. It'd be pretty straightforward to do with something like ResearchHub in a way that it wouldn't be in other contexts, possibly.
So just to repeat this back to make sure I understand accurately, if I was writing a new paper and I had a list of citations that influenced my new paper, I would rate the citations that I'm including based on their relevance?
Based on their perceived relevance, yes. Your perception of their relevance to your research.
It's an interesting idea because I've seen a lot of stuff where like if you publish a paper that ends up being disproved in a very public fashion, it can still have a lot of citations because people cite it as like a bad example. And so, yeah, I think having context of like how relevant is this citation to the work that I'm presenting today is pretty cool. I'd have to think it through more, but we would definitely be able to do something like that with our electronic lab notebook feature. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. It's a pretty interesting idea.
Just to elaborate more on what like Edwin and Nathan said, I think another idea could be like, for example, for citations, like when I write a paper, there's normally like 2-3 papers that are really like useful for my research that I basically started to do my research from. So like, for example, one for a specific material, another one for a specific method. Those are citations that are like central to my work. They should have a different weight to other citations that I put in text so that I reference like to other people that did different works. So being able to basically differentiate between citations in a sort of rank, yeah, but I would basically discriminate between actual citations that I used in a concrete way in my work and other citations that I just, put in the text because, it's always good to have some citations on. And another thing could be giving additional weight to works that are you, I mean, you yourself proved or other people proved to be true, to be working. So basically I tried this protocol, it worked. I would like this person to be kind of like compensated for like doing a good job and being like, you know, actually fair in reporting their work, while there are many works that I tried to replicate and they didn't work. And in the same way, they should be kind of like, let's say, downvoted in a sort of way. So we have, I think, the possibility, in contrast with like traditional journals, to being able to add additional. Yeah, I love the idea of like dimensions of citations or like score to a specific paper.
Sorry, just to add, like, yeah, because Nathan brings up like the point, kind of like with ResearchHub, it's because like we just have to create another impact factor, because it's great to like put subjective relevancy and stuff, but the reason why impact factor is so good is because it's so simple, and all it is just taking the number of citations of this paper and converting it into a score. And if like ResearchHub had something similar, because really like if you think about it, to get a high impact, to get a good score as an author, if you publish in a high impact journal, you get like a better score as well, right? It's very cyclical, this nature. And until we unseat that impact factor, I forget what the author's score is called as well, but until we unseat that, then like it's just like, I think it's ResearchHub hopefully works in a way that we can compete with it, because then it just would drive people to come to ResearchHub, because really it's another way to get a high impact factor without actually going to a high journal. I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't know. Whatever Nathan said though is like, yeah, I totally agree with.
I think one thing that we have to keep in mind when it comes to like impact factor in these like big like bibliometric kind of use cases is like they cause a lot of problems. And I think they kind of are the genesis of a lot of problems that exist within academia. Like you can look at papers that show that like high impact factor journals, the studies in them aren't replicated as often as low impact factor journals, because people tend to like overstate their findings in order to be accepted by these like big impact factor journals. So there's a lot of like second tier consequences that come from things like impact factor that like we want to make sure that we don't contribute to, because like in theory, people are partaking in these behaviors that are not ideal just purely for the reputational reward. And if you threw a financial reward on top of that, it could really accelerate a lot of the issues. And so, yeah, we just have to be very like intentional when we start thinking about like quality metrics to make sure that we don't cause downstream like bad behaviors. Like I love the idea of rewarding people more if their paper does get independently replicated, because then in theory, like you take away the incentive to overstate your findings or like use a statistical method that's not totally representative of the data. Yeah, it's a really, really difficult problem because it's hard to always understand how incentives will work. But yeah, just something I think we got to keep in mind when thinking about impact factor, trying to compete with it.
It might be worth getting the perspective of someone who actually works for the NIH or in the context of like, dispersing grants to people, because they might have their own problems with impact scores that we're not considering. And that could help us, design whatever metric in a way that they might find more suitable. And if that information is somehow made available to researchers, then they would be more likely to use this platform for publication because they think it would be more advantageous for grant purposes. Because that's going to be the thing, right? If you have another metric, but they don't think it's going to be helpful getting them published in high impact journals, then it's not as useful. So got to be careful about the design there.
Yeah, 100%. And I even think like what you said, starting to like, I think the eventual end customer for ResearchHub is grant committees. If you can help them make decisions that are like more evidence-based and like cause downstream positive effects, I think that you could get groups like Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, Gates Foundation, like some of these like more forward-thinking granting agencies to use like a tool that helps with that. There's a bunch of studies that have looked at like NIH and NSF like granting procedures, and they're like really dishearteningly random. Like there's like they've not really replicated their granting decisions. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of issues that exist within like how capital is distributed to scientists that could be addressed, where ResearchHub could basically do it like more effectively and cheaper than what currently is. And I guess like long-term kind of laying out in my mind the roadmap strategy type conversation, having people publish directly to ResearchHub, having peer review happen, and then eventually starting to address funding. I think the really cool thing would be if like there was a curated list of projects where there were people doing peer review of the project proposals, where if I'm a funder, I can just go to like the biotechnology hub and see like what's the most popular research proposal right now. Let me look at context that experts have on that proposal. Now I can evaluate, the potential grant in a way that doesn't exist. Like I don't have to look at somebody's resume. I can look at like the crowd's opinion of this like research idea. But yeah, Edwin, I totally agree. I think the end customer here is the person who's making like the capital allocation decisions for research. And we've got to like, it's a stepwise process of like getting enough like interesting content and content creators on ResearchHub, where then all of a sudden the capital allocators are like, oh, it makes sense where I would use this tool to help me make better granting decisions.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
I think it's even a positive feedback loop from there, where if granting decisions are happening through ResearchHub, then high quality scientists, they're not like, I need to maximize my impact factor in order to get a grant. They can say, I just need to make a really good grant proposal that others think is good, which is a better thought process than what currently exists.
Dude.
Cool. So we're a little bit over now, but happy to answer any more questions or go over more metrics if anybody has other thoughts they'd like to share.
No, just thanks for doing this, Patrick. Thanks for showing us all that stuff. That was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry I didn't have like an actual heat map ready for Hotjar. Once this loads up, like I'll share it in the editor channel or even the community channel. And then if you guys are interested, like I think a Hotjar movie night could actually be kind of fun. Like if you just want to like see
Yeah,
like,
sure.
how people are actually using the site. Like there's a lot of insights that I've gotten just from like being bored and randomly just watching user behavior. So happy to do that as well.
One more thing, Patrick. I think we had this conversation initially, but what's the? This may not be too readily apparent, but for people who want to just be more involved in this project, what other avenues or like how might we go about that, especially for non-technical people?
It's a great question. So I think probably the best thing to do if you want to like get more involved is either to DM me or Anton, and we can help point you in the right direction just to like just see like your skill set, what you're interested in doing, help to connect you with the people who are doing whatever you're most interested in doing. That's like a very like non-answer. So just hit up me or Anton. But
Sure.
Generally the thing.
Your notifications are off, by the way. But that's fine.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that.
It's okay. It's fine.
Well, I've got to figure out that. But yeah, I think generally helping to grow the community. So like things like outreach, putting together AMAs on papers. We're thinking about tweaking the editor program to help like recruit potential peer review for the next month. So there'll be more details here in like the next day or two. But yeah, essentially helping to build community. And there are a couple cool ways that we could do that. I mentioned earlier, like we'll have a call to show how to like post papers to Reddit and try and help drive inbound traffic from like other social media places. So that's another thing that's like, it takes like half an hour to do. And like if you were to do a Facebook ad, it's $1 a click typically. So you can like create a lot of value through inbound traffic without very much effort, just based on the content that we have. But yeah, thanks for saying that. And I think like short term, DMing me and Anton, and then we'll probably try and set up kind of like more established pipelines for other people, you know, who want to help out. We can like point them in the right direction with a little bit more automated fashion.
Cool.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for coming and for the interest kind of like in this like next level of how the organization operates, like looking at metrics and like how we like think about decisions of like what to build and stuff like that. Like the more ideas we have and really like criticism of our plans, the better off that we'll be, like just from refining the thought process and everything. So yeah, if you ever want to do this again, I don't hate doing this on a monthly basis. I think would actually be pretty cool just to like keep everybody in the loop of what's like happening from a very top level view. But yeah, thanks everybody for coming and for sharing your ideas.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Goodbye.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
All right.